That was long. Final Fantasy VII is widely known for being the game which sold the first PlayStation console. Many customers purchased a PS1 primarily to play Final Fantasy VII, so needless to say, this is a very popular and well-liked game. Such a fact shouldn't be surprising, considering that this installment is the best-selling of all the Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy VII is a role-playing game. The main character is Cloud, but he is not the only character you play. During most battles, you control Cloud and 2 other characters, and during conversations you see the exchange from a faraway perspective instead of from Cloud's point of view. In the beginning of the game, Cloud joins up with a rebel organization known as Avalanche. This organization aims to stop Shinra, a corporation which is draining power, known as Mako, from the planet's lifestream. Shinra's monopoly on Mako keeps those who are not in power living in slums, where life is a constant struggle. To protect their hold on this power, Shinra created Soldier, an armed force where members are exposed to Mako to become better fighters, and the Turks, a group of assassins and spies. In a somewhat separate but greatly integrated plotline, the main antagonist, Sephiroth, is aiming to become a god through taking all of the planet's lifestream. His motives for doing so are somewhat flawed, as he believes in an origin of himself which is not true. But I can't go into any more detail about Sephiroth's motivations, because doing so would spoil the game for those who haven't played. Your goal throughout this entire game, which is 3 discs long, is to stop the Shinra and stop Sephiroth. Aside from being an RPG, Final Fantasy VII is an adventure game. You spend a great deal of time exploring the world and getting information about Shinra and Sephiroth, all the while fighting off enemies that you randomly encounter through your travels. To me personally, the biggest and most enjoyable part of this game are the battles. You fight random, unrelated enemies, soldiers, the Turks, members of Shinra, and, of course, Sephiroth himself. The battles are turn-based, which I am an absolute fan of. I'll probably lose cool points for this, but I do not like real-time fighting games. The whole button-mashing concept is not my thing, and I can never get the hang of pressing buttons in a certain order to perform certain moves. Trust me. Back when I only had a few video games, I spent countless hours trying to master Yoshimitsu's moves in Tekken 2. And I failed. Pretty damn miserably, too. In battles, you utilize characters' physical attacks and magic attacks. Physical attacks become more powerful as you level up your characters and upgrade your character's weapons. Magic attacks become more powerful as you level up your materia. You get upgraded weapons either by purchasing them with Gil, the Final Fantasy currency, or by finding them in hidden locations. You level up your characters and your materia simply through battling. Characters' hit points and magic points are also affected by how much materia and what type of materia they have equipped. Something that I found irritating is that the descriptions for a lot of the materia were very uninformative. Many descriptions just said things like, equip, enter name of materia, magic. Well, duh! I want to know what that materia actually does to the enemy. I had to resort to looking up a lot of the descriptions online in order to avoid wasting Gil. My favorite part of battles are when characters reach and use their limit breaks. Limit breaks inflict significantly more damage to opponents than normal attacks, and they make whatever character using them take his or her turn immediately, regardless of whether or not other characters should be going first. The controls for this game are functional and overall very good. My only complaint is that the OK button is circle instead of the usual X, which threw me off for a while when I first started playing. You eventually do get used to this though, and you also get used to the cancel button being X. There are a bajillion side quests in this game. An example of one is breeding chocobos, which is probably the biggest and most important side quest. Examples of other side quests involve adding people to your party, such as Yuffie or Vincent. The large amount of side quests in this game gives it fantastic replay value. It would be nearly impossible for someone to complete all side quests and find everything their first time through the game. I can safely say that it would take me 3 to 5 playthroughs in order to complete everything. Just imagine how long that would take! Final Fantasy VII is easy to moderately difficult. It's not hard to play through the game, assuming you have the tenacity and interest to stick with it. But there are times when you encounter an incredibly difficult enemy who will kill you the first few times fighting it. If you learn to save your progress often though, these enemies won't be much of a problem. I rate Final Fantasy VII 9 out of 10. The plotline is very creative and keeps you wanting to learn more as you progress, which is very important for a game of this length. The battles are fun and are well thought out, and I like how different angles are used during them to keep the view from being static. I also like how customizable the game can get. You can change the name of many different characters. You can change the color of the text boxes, which is sadly something I didn't figure out until later. And of course, you can decide which character has what materia. Equipping my characters with materia and figuring out which ones worked best combined was one of my favorite things to do. I also enjoyed utilizing my best combined materia during boss battles, because the high damage attacks felt rightly earned. What keeps me from giving Final Fantasy VII a full 10 out of 10 is the fact that the conversations and scenes drag on forever. When it comes to video games, I prefer to be involved in everything. So sitting back for several minutes during scenes and occasionally pressing circle here and there got boring for me very quickly. I sometimes felt like I was watching a movie instead of actually playing a video game. And what drove me up the wall was that when I died during a boss battle, the scene that played right before it would replay again when I started over. Why couldn't I have the option to skip the scene? There was even an attack that Sephiroth used with the world's longest lead up to it. But before I get to that, let me tell you how much I love the music for this battle. I felt so badass and unstoppable when battling to it. Which is saying a lot considering all I was doing was sitting around pressing buttons. So the first time I had to sit and watch Sephiroth's supernova attack, I was fine, as it was images of space paired up with this absolutely phenomenal music. But then when I had to watch it a second and third time, I got instantly impatient. Oh, come on!